They did it again. That was the phrase everyone kept repeating as the latest moment between Park Bo-gum and Kim Yoo-jung spread across the internet like wildfire. No scandal, no controversy, no stage publicity, just a simple interaction so natural, so warm, and so unmistakably genuine that fans all around the world felt their hearts melt all over again. It wasn't planned. It wasn't forced. It wasn't scripted. And yet, the way they moved around each other, the way they smiled, the way they instinctively reacted, it felt like a reminder of why this duo remains one of the most loved pairings in the industry. It all began at a cultural event both of them attended, a gathering meant to celebrate artistry, creativity, and community. Neither Bo-gum nor Yoo-jung was the main highlight. They were just two among many. And yet, from the moment they arrived, eyes naturally gravitated toward them, not because they wanted attention, but because there was something about their presence that drew people in. Kim Yoo-jung arrived first, dressed in something simple yet elegant, waving politely at fans who spotted her unexpectedly. She carried herself with that same quiet grace she has had since her earliest days as a child actress. Minutes later, Park Bo-gum stepped through the entrance, and even in a crowd of guests, he stood out with that unmistakable brightness he carries everywhere he goes. When their eyes met, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't exaggerated. It was just warm. Like two people genuinely happy to see each other. A fan standing nearby caught the exact moment their smiles aligned. Not a camera smile. Not a public smile. A real one. And that was just the beginning. Throughout the event, Bo-gum and Yoo-jung found themselves repeatedly ending up side by side, not intentionally, but naturally. When they walked through the exhibition hall, they drifted near each other as if pulled by an invisible thread. When one paused to greet someone, the other waited just a little bit longer than necessary. When Yoo-jung laughed at something a staff member said, Bo-gum turned instinctively, the kind of reaction that happens when you're attuned to someone even in a noisy room. But the moment that melted the internet came later. During a demonstration segment, the lights were dimmed unexpectedly as part of the presentation. It wasn't dark for long, but just long enough. In that split second, Yoo-jung stepped back, startled by the sudden shift. Without thinking, Bo-gum reached out and steadied her, his hand finding her arm gently, guiding her toward safety until the lights returned. He didn't do it for attention. He didn't know anyone was watching. But someone captured the moment, a short 3-second clip where Bo-gum instinctively reached, Yoo-jung instinctively leaned, and both of them reacted with a quiet, effortless trust. The clip exploded online within hours. People slowed it down, zoomed in, analyzed the expression on their faces. Not for gossip, but because something about the interaction felt deeply human. The way Bo-gum's hand hovered for a moment after, as if making sure she was okay. The way Yoo-jung gave a small nod, the kind you give to someone who has protected you before. The way they both shared a tiny smile afterward without saying a word. It was nothing dramatic, but it was real. And that realness was enough to melt millions of hearts. But what made the situation even more beautiful was what happened afterward, something not captured in the viral clip. Once the lights stabilized and the demonstration continued, Bo-gum quietly shifted so Yoo-jung stood slightly closer to him, away from the crowd that was pressing forward. He positioned his body in a way that gave her space, a subtle protective gesture that only someone attentive would do. Meanwhile, Yoo-jung kept glancing over with a soft expression, as if silently acknowledging his thoughtfulness. Fans who were there said it wasn't just one moment. It was the collection of many small ones, Bo-gum passing her a drink without asking, Yoo-jung fixing his collar unconsciously, the two of them leaning in at the same time while observing an exhibit frame. It was the way their energies matched, the comfortable familiarity between them, the shared ease that has only grown deeper with time. Later, when they stepped outside for a break, they ended up standing near the same balcony overlooking the courtyard. They weren't alone, there were staff members and fellow artists around, but somehow, they found a brief pocket of quiet. Yoo-jung asked him something softly, and Bo-gum laughed in that kind, gentle way he always has. She smiled back instantly. It was the kind of exchange that lasts only a few seconds but leaves a lasting impression. Someone far below snapped a picture. It wasn't posed. It wasn't sharp. But it captured something unmistakable, the warmth between them, the way they leaned slightly toward each other, the kind of familiarity that doesn't fade with time or distance. By the time the photo made its way online, fans were already overflowing with affection. People didn't call it romantic. They called it beautiful, respectful, touching. A reunion between two people whose bond had stayed intact despite years of individual growth. But the night held one more surprise. As the event wrapped up, a small child approached Yoo-jung nervously, holding a notebook. She shyly asked for an autograph. Yoo-jung knelt down to her level, speaking softly, complimenting the girl's hair, making her feel special. When Bo-gum approached a moment later, the little girl looked at him with wide eyes, too shy to speak. Yoo-jung chuckled and said, "Go on, he's very nice." And Bo-gum, smiling warmly, bent down and signed the notebook right next to Yoo-jung's signature. The child's mother captured a picture of that moment and later wrote online, "They treated my daughter like she mattered." No cameras, no managers, no rush. Just kindness. That comment became the heart of the story. Because once again, Park Bo-gum and Kim Yoo-jung reminded everyone that greatness isn't in their fame. It's in the quiet, genuine moments they share with the world, with each other, and with the people around them. As the night ended and they walked out of the venue, their steps matched naturally. They didn't walk far together, just enough to exchange a few final words, enough to show a connection stronger than time. And that's all it took. They did it again. Another simple moment. Another accidental spark. Another warm interaction that made the world melt. Not because it was dramatic. Not because it was theatrical. But because it was real. And that is why fans say, once again, that Park Bo-gum and Kim Yoo-jung remain one of the most beloved duos, not just on screen, but in the hearts of everyone who watches them. They did it again, and this time, it felt even bigger. Park Bo-gum and Kim Yoo-jung had unintentionally created another moment, one so natural, so heartwarming, and so unforgettable that the entire internet seemed to pause just to replay it over and over again. It happened during what was supposed to be a simple, quiet promotional event. Nothing fancy, no massive crowd, no dramatic lights, just the two of them appearing together for the first time in months. Fans thought it would be a routine appearance. Media expected polite exchanges and maybe a brief greeting. But no one expected the spark that followed. As soon as Bo-gum walked in, something shifted. It wasn't in the room, it was in him. His expression softened in a way that only ever happened around Yoo-jung. It was the same softness fans recognized from years ago during interviews, behind-the-scenes clips, and press tours. That warmth, that silent admiration, it never seemed to fade. And Yoo-jung noticed it immediately. She always did. She turned her head just slightly, as though her senses were tuned only to him. The smile she gave wasn't staged, wasn't forced, wasn't for the cameras. It was real, gentle, relieved, as though she'd just seen someone she'd been genuinely missing. But the moment that broke the internet came seconds later. When Yoo-jung reached for a pen to sign her card, it slipped out of her hand and dropped to the floor. Simple mistake. Happens all the time. But the reaction wasn't simple. Before the pen even landed, Bo-gum was already moving. The kind of instinctive reaction you don't fake, you don't calculate, you just feel. He bent down at the same time she did, and for a brief pause, their faces were inches apart. Close enough that the cameras didn't even know where to focus. Close enough that fans swore they saw Yoo-jung freeze for half a second, as if the moment felt too familiar, too natural, too intimate. And then it happened. Their hands touched. Not by accident. Not a brush. Their hands completely met, fingers overlapping for a full second before either of them reacted. That single second turned into a viral phenomenon. Bo-gum looked up first, stunned for a moment before his expression melted into the sweetest smile, one he couldn't hide even if he tried. Yoo-jung, flustered but unable to look away, returned the smile shyly, like someone trying to keep a private moment from becoming public. But it was too late. Cameras flashed. Fans screamed. The clip spread online within minutes. People called it the touch that launched a million replays. Some insisted it was coincidence. Others believed it was something more. But what happened after made the rumors impossible to ignore. Bo-gum didn't let go immediately. He held the pen, but he also held her hand for a moment longer than necessary. And Yoo-jung didn't pull back. Instead, she said something quietly, Too soft for the microphones, but enough for fans to catch her lips forming what looked like, "You're too fast." Bo-gum laughed softly and whispered something back. And that whisper became the biggest mystery online. Some lips readers claimed he said, "I've always been fast when it's you." Others argued he said, "I just saw you needed help." Either way, the exchange felt private, sweet, intimate, and undeniably warm. And still, the day wasn't over. Later, as the event wrapped up, the staff directed them toward separate exits, but Bo-gum gently touched Yoo-jung's arm, guiding her toward the same hallway he was walking in. It was subtle, but it wasn't nothing. Fans caught it on camera. He walked slightly behind her, as if making sure she was safe. She turned back every few steps, checking if he was still there. And he always was. No matter what, he matched her pace. No matter how far they walked, the distance between them never grew too wide. It was those small, unspoken gestures, the lingering looks, the familiar smiles, the instinctive reactions that reminded fans of something important. Whatever bond Bo-gum and Yoo-jung formed years ago, it never left. It remained intact, unshaken, real. By the time they reached the exit, they shared one last glance. A soft one, a warm one, a glance that said more than words ever could. They didn't need to hold hands again. They didn't need to hug. They didn't need dramatic moments. That single glance was enough to set social media on fire. People reposted it endlessly. Fan pages exploded. Comment sections flooded with one question. Are they still each other's special person? Whether they are or not, only they know. But one thing is certain. Every time Park Bo-gum and Kim Yoo-jung stand beside each other, the world feels like it's watching something real. And this viral moment, it reminded everyone why they'll always be one of the most adored duos in the industry. Because when they're together, it never feels like performance. It feels honest. It feels genuine. It feels unforgettable. They did it again, without trying, without planning, without forcing anything. Just them being them. And the world couldn't help but fall for it all over again.